What's the worst karma you've seen hit someone who manipulated their ex? Story 1 throwaway because my town is small and people are still talking about this. My ex, Lena, always had a victim story ready. When we were together, she told everyone I was controlling with money because I wanted a basic budget. Reality, I, 31M, worked 2 jobs while she built her dream boutique, her name on the storefront, my credit on the line. She'd cry about how banks hate women and how I was the only one who believed in her. So when she asked me to come sign some routine lease renewals, I didn't think much of it. She showed me a stack of papers, flipped to the last page, pointed where to sign. I did. Stupid, I know. Fast forward a couple months. We break up after I catch her sending, let's call them enthusiastic pictures to a supplier. She tells everyone I was emotionally abusive, that I tried to financially trap her, and she escaped. I just shut up and moved on. Blocked her, paid off what I thought was the last of the business debt, and ate the loss. 2 years later, I get a letter from a bank I've never used about my application being in default. Turns out my line of credit for the boutique was $40K. I nearly threw up. I went to the branch and asked for the file. They brought out a copy of the loan packet, every page with my signature, except the pages I remembered signing. Half of them were obviously traced. Even my name was misspelled on one. The bank started an internal investigation. I got a lawyer. We pulled old emails and texts. Here's where karma did a full backflip. Her new boyfriend reached out to me on Facebook. He'd found messages where she bragged to her friend about forging his dumb signature. He'll never notice. He doesn't even read stuff. He'd just discovered she'd taken out a credit card in his name too. He sent everything to my lawyer. At the hearing, she came in full victim mode, sniffling about my abusive ex trying to ruin my business. Then the bank's attorney calmly put a blown-up copy of the forged signature next to my real one, and then read her own messages, word for word, into the record. You could feel the room turn on her. She ended up on the hook for the whole amount, banned from getting credit with that bank, and charged for fraud. Her boutique closed within months. Remember all those people who believed her when she said I'd trapped her financially? They watched her mugshot circulate with the words, "loan fraud," under it. The wildest part? The judge's final line before banging the gavel was, "Actions have consequences, Ms. Sakures." Word for word what she used to say to me every time she maxed out my card. Story 2 I, 28F, worked in a mid-sized tech company where our team lead Marissa dated one of my coworkers, Tom. Office romance, whatever. At first it seemed fine. Then Tom broke up with her. Overnight, Marissa turned it into this cinematic abuse narrative. She told everyone Tom had emotionally tortured her, that he'd stalk her after work, that HR was already involved. She cried in meetings, took mental health days, and slowly got people to stop inviting Tom to stuff because it might trigger her. Then she confided in me that she was scared to report him because she didn't want to ruin his career. But also, some men only learn when there are consequences. Next week, Tom was quietly moved off our team, stuck on some backburner project, and his promotion reevaluated. I didn't buy it. Tom was socially awkward but not creepy. It felt like she was moving chess pieces. New guy joins the team, Eli. Soft-spoken, ex-IT, very observe before speaking. He ends up sharing a cubicle wall with Tom, and they become lunch buddies. One Friday, Eli asked me casually, "Does Marissa overshare with you?" I laugh. Understatement of the year. Turns out Marissa had been DMing Eli on Teams late at night, sending walls of text about how men like Tom think they can just leave, and how she was building a case so he'd never do this to another woman. She literally typed, "HR only moves when you say the right words," followed by a bullet list of accusations she was considering using. Eli, being ex-IT, knew how retention policies work. He screenshotted everything and went to HR, but not the regular rep. He went to the HR director. 3 weeks later, we had a mandatory workplace conduct meeting. All hands. HR director is there, plus someone from legal. There's a weird vibe. They do the usual PowerPoint. Then the director says, "We want to address a serious recent policy violation concerning false accusations and abuse of HR processes." My stomach dropped. They don't show names, but they put up anonymized chat logs that were unmistakably Marissa's. The phrasing, the bullet list, the "say the right words" comment. You could see people connect the dots in real time. After the meeting, Marissa was called into a conference room and never came back to her desk. Security boxed up her stuff. Later, we all got an email. She'd been terminated for cause for falsifying reports and retaliating against an ex. Tom got a quiet apology, his promotion reinstated, and a new manager. But the real karma was social. All the people who parroted Marissa's "he's dangerous" stuff had to sit across from him, knowing they'd helped tank his career because she was mad he dumped her. HR can be a weapon, sure. That day, it boomeranged hard. Story 3I, now 21F, grew up believing my dad didn't want me. My parents divorced when I was 8. My mom said he chose his new life over us, that he barely paid child support, that he'd only show up for photo ops. Every time he was late, she'd sigh and say, "See? This is who he is." She'd read texts from him out loud. Short, cold messages. "Can't make it. Busy. Tell the kids I said hi." We were told he was too selfish to call himself. By 13, I hated him. I refused his visits. Mom would hug me, cry, and say she never wanted to turn us against him, but the truth hurts. When I was 16, Mom upgraded her phone and left the old one in a drawer. One day I needed a backup and she said I could use it. I charged it up, and every synced message thread was just there, unfiltered. I saw messages from my dad begging for extra time, offering to pay for my extracurriculars directly because child support never seemed to reach them. Screenshots he'd sent of flight confirmations when she said he never even tried to visit. Worst, I saw her texts to her friends. Stuff like, "Judge believed me over him again," and "If I don't let him talk to the kids, they eventually stop asking." Watch. My stomach dropped through the floor. I started quietly comparing what she read to us versus what was actually on screen. She had edited entire sentences in her retellings, took out his "I love yous," emphasized the one angry message he sent after 6 months of stonewalling. When my little brother's custody got reopened because of school issues, a guardian ad litem was appointed. I was 17 and asked to speak with them. I brought printed screenshots. I told them I wanted to see my dad. I told them I'd been lied to for almost a decade. The gal asked if I'd be willing to testify. In court, my mom came in confident, all pastel blouse and trembling voice. She started her usual script about my dad being uninvolved and me refusing to see him because of his behavior. Then my turn. My voice shook, but I explained what I found. My lawyer put a giant poster board up. One column her version of a text she'd read to us, the other the actual message from the phone, side by side. It was damning. My mom lost it. She stood up, yelling that I was ungrateful, that my dad had turned me. The judge banged the gavel and told her to sit down or be removed. By the end of the hearing, my brother's primary custody went to my dad. My mom got supervised visitation and a court-ordered therapist for reunification. With us, not him. Outside the courtroom, my dad asked if he could hug me. I ugly cried into his chest for like 10 minutes. Mom texted me that night. "Hope you're proud. You killed your mother." I blocked her. Then I sat at my dad's kitchen table with my brother, eating takeout, laughing at some stupid meme. It was the first dinner in my life that didn't feel like I was choosing sides. Story 4I27F married my husband Chris last year. Before me, he dated Jenna, a master manipulator. When they broke up, she pulled every cliché. Threatened to hurt herself if he left, claimed she was pregnant, told his religious parents she miscarried because he stressed her out so much. She'd show up at his mom's house sobbing about how he abandoned his family while he was at work. Even after they were done, she'd text him from new numbers, tell mutual friends he was still secretly sleeping with her, etc. Eventually, he changed his number, went low contact with his own parents, and we built a little life 2 hours away. When we got engaged, his mom was frosty. "Are you sure you're not just running from your responsibilities?" she asked, clearly referencing Jenna's fake miscarriage. Chris told her flat out, "There was no baby. There never was." He'd seen the negative tests himself. She sniffed and said Jenna had no reason to lie. We planned a small wedding. His side of the family gave half-hearted RSVPs, but at least they came. Mid-reception, during speeches, I see a familiar face in the back. Jenna, in a white sundress. Before anyone can stop her, she marches up, grabs the mic from my maid of honor and says, loud enough to echo, "I'm sorry, but everyone here deserves to know that Chris abandoned his second child, too. I'm pregnant, and he knows." His mom gasps. His aunt literally crosses herself. All eyes swing to us. I felt this cold clarity. My maid of honor, who works at a clinic, but more importantly, is a world-class snoop, had warned me. Jenna had DM'd her cousin about getting a positive test online and crashing that man's wedding so he never forgets me. We'd printed the screenshots just in case. Before Chris could even speak, my FIL calmly walked to the DJ, asked him to plug his phone into the projector and said, "Since we're making announcements, let's show all the evidence." Up on the screen, Jenna's DMs, her actual words. I told his mom I lost the baby lol. She ate it up. If I fake another pregnancy, he'll have to talk to me. Imagine his little bride's face when I show up in white. The room went dead, quiet. Then Chris's mom stood up, walked past Jenna without a word, came straight to me, and said into the mic, I owe my son and his wife an apology. I chose the wrong person to believe. Security, okay, my huge cousin in a suit, escorted Jenna out while she screamed about privacy and illegal hacking. No one followed. Later, my MIL asked if she could dance with me for the mother-daughter song she never thought she'd get. She cried the whole time, kept saying, I'm so sorry we let her do this to you. We got the videographer to cut the whole scene out of the official wedding video, but we kept the raw clip. Every time a younger cousin asks, what do red flags look like? We don't even need words. We just hit play. Story 5. My older sister Claire was married to Rick for 12 years. Rick was the golden child of a very wealthy family. Think country club, lake house, the works. Behind closed doors, he was a nightmare. He'd cheat, then cry about his childhood so she'd comfort him. He'd blow money on toys, then tell everyone Claire was bleeding him dry with groceries and kids' clothes. When she finally filed for divorce, he went nuclear. He told anyone who would listen that she was a gold digger who only married him for his dad's money. He confessed fake affairs, on her behalf, to his church group so they'd ostracize her. He even told their kids, 8 and 10 at the time, that mommy was trying to take daddy's house away. During the divorce, he hid assets, quit his job to avoid paying alimony, and dragged it out for 2 years. Claire walked away with basic child support, a small settlement, and her sanity. Everyone on his side treated her like she'd robbed him blind. His father, though, went quiet. He stopped returning Rick's calls as often, still polite in public, but you could tell something had cracked. 3 years later, his dad passed away. Heart attack. Horrible time. The family invited Claire and the kids to the funeral. Mostly, I suspect, because the kids insisted. Rick spent the entire wake holding court about finally being able to set things right financially, and how the vultures, meaning Claire and the grandkids, wouldn't be left much because his dad knew who was really there for him. Then came the will reading. We're sitting in this oak-paneled conference room. Lawyer, siblings, Rick's mom, a couple of us in the back. Rick's practically vibrating with anticipation. The lawyer reads the usual stuff, then gets to the big section. It goes something like, the bulk of the estate is placed into a trust for the grandchildren, to be managed until they're adults, by Claire, not Rick. She has full discretion for their education, housing, and well-being. Rick himself gets a comparatively small lump sum and a letter to be read aloud in full. You could have heard a pin drop. The lawyer clears his throat and reads this brutal, calm letter from Rick's dad. How he was deeply disappointed to watch his son lie about Claire, financially manipulate her, and use the children as pawns. How he reviewed court records, talked privately with Claire, and concluded that the one person who consistently acted in the best interest of my grandchildren was the woman you tried so hard to destroy. The final line, I will not reward cruelty with wealth. If you wish to be rich, earn it honestly. Rick went white, then tomato red. He started shouting that Claire got to him and that the lawyer was misreading it. The lawyer just slid a video across the table, a USB stick labeled with the date his dad had recorded the letter being read and the will explained, in his own voice. Everyone watched Rick realize there was no one left to manipulate. His siblings, who had parroted his gold digger narrative for years, ended up hugging Claire, apologizing for believing him. One of them said, if Dad trusted you with everything, that's good enough for me. Claire didn't gloat. She just took a deep breath, squeezed her kids' hands, and walked out. Rick's worst karma wasn't losing the money, honestly. It was sitting there, in his dad's office, while the entire family finally heard who he really was, from the one person he'd always assumed would be on his side. Story 6. I was the social media intern for a mid-sized beauty brand that did those cheesy, empowered women campaigns. Our new face was an influencer I'll call Nova. Big following, lots of trauma content. Her breakout series was about leaving her abusive, narcissistic ex and rebuilding from nothing. The brand ate it up. Every brief had center Nova's survivor journey. She cried on shoots, talked about how he'd stolen her 20s, how the legal system failed her, blah blah. My job was to clip the most shareable bits for TikTok. I didn't question it. It wasn't my life. Then we did a live Q&A for a product launch. 30K people watching. I'm backstage moderating questions, feeding a few to the host when I see a flood of comments. That's not what happened. You said the opposite in your Finsta. Tell them about the bet, Nova. We ignore it at first, but it keeps spamming. Then a blue check therapist account comments, Nova, as your former client, I'm horrified. I will be making a statement. Our PR director mouths, "What the hell?" Someone drops a link to a Twitter thread. I click. It's a guy with like 300 followers, her ex. He's posted screenshots, sure, but that's not what got me. It was the video, a screen recording of Nova's old close friend's IG story from years ago. You can see the green ring and everything. She's laughing into the camera, drunk, saying, "If I can make people think he abused me, I win every argument forever." Watch. She literally spells out the plan. Embellish a bad breakup into emotional abuse. Hint she'll go to the cops, use it to keep their mutual friends and sponsors. Someone from that circle saved it before she could delete. The thread is going viral while we're still live. In real time, the viewer count drops. Our brand account starts getting tagged in exploiting fake trauma posts. PR hands me a sticky note. Kill the stream now. But before the host can rap, a question pops up on the screen behind them. The one we use to feature viewer comments. Somehow our filter missed it. In giant letters, "Did you tell the brand about the video where you admit making up the abuse for clout?" Or nah? Nova turns, sees it, and just freezes. Goes sheet white. The live stream hard cuts to our logo. Comments are still pouring in when we yank the plug. Later that week, we cut ties and released a bland, "We stand with real survivors" statement. Her sponsors dropped one by one. The therapist posted her own statement about terminating Nova as a client after patterns of manipulative, fabricated narratives. The part that stuck with me, in her final angry DM blast to our PR team, Nova wrote, "You're all just believing his side now," except it wasn't his side. It was hers. Straight to camera, from before she needed a villain. Story 7I33M was the idiot who thought love trumped logistics. My ex-wife, Anna, moved here on a student visa. We dated a year, got married another year in. She was fun, intense, always talking about our future empire. I thought we were a team. Around the time her visa was expiring, she got strategic. Lots of, "If you really loved me, you'd file the papers faster." And "I can't sleep. I'm so scared of being sent back." We rushed through the marriage-based residency stuff. She'd cry to my parents about living in fear, about how I was the only one who made her feel safe. Fast forward 18 months. I catch her sexting someone labeled project manager. I confront her. She says I'm paranoid, that it's for a role-play thing. 2 weeks later, I find a whole second phone in her gym bag. She flips hard. Suddenly, I'm controlling, emotionally abusive, wielding immigration over her head. She moves out, files for a special waiver that lets you stay, even if the marriage ends, if you can show abuse. Next thing I know, there's a restraining order request with wild claims. That I broke her laptop, hid her passport, threatened to destroy her papers. I didn't even know what half the forms were called. My lawyer basically said, "Keep your head down, document everything." We sent copies of emails showing I'd helped her with school, paid her tuition, etc. But it still looked bad. I was the citizen. She was the crying immigrant wife. She got her conditional status approved. I got handed this reputation in our community as the guy who abused his foreign bride. I went low profile. Therapy, work, gym, repeat. 3 years later, I'm at my buddy's BBQ when I see a woman I recognize across the yard, Anna's old roommate, from her first semester here. We do that awkward nod. Then she comes over like a woman on a mission. "Are you Evan?" she asks. I nod. "I owe you an apology," she says. Turns out Anna had just tried the exact same play with her new husband, a nurse she met during clinicals. When they split, she filed another abuse claim, this time including her stepkid, saying he was unsafe. Only problem? New husband had cameras in his house because of a custody agreement with his ex. Those cameras recorded her screaming at the kid, threatening to call immigration on him if he didn't lie to a social worker. Recorded her bragging on the phone to a friend in her native language about playing the victim system perfectly twice, except her friend, the old roommate, had gotten sick of being used. She took those recordings straight to an investigator after Anna tried to rope her into writing a fake affidavit about me, starting the pattern. The investigator pulled Anna's old file. Same phrasing, same story, same broke my laptop, stole my passport lines, just with the names swapped. Her new case got denied. Then they reopened her old case. She's now in removal proceedings. Last I heard, she was trying to angle for yet another type of relief, blaming both of us for her emotional instability. Her roommate looked me in the eye and said, "She practiced the story with me using your name first. I helped her. I'm so sorry." I walked away from that BBQ with nothing about my legal status changed, nothing magically fixed. But for the first time, the narrative wasn't poor Anna, evil Evan. It was, we all finally saw the pattern. and so did the people with the power to send her home. Story 8, I teach 7th grade language arts. You learn to ignore a lot of kid drama, but every now and then something hits you in the gut. Max was quiet, polite, straight A. Lived with his mom. On emergency cards and field trip forms, the dad line always said, "Do not release, abusive." In bright red. There were notes in his file. No contact, restraining order, father highly dangerous, history of violence. We were told to be extra careful. Mom came to everything. Conferences, concerts, random Wednesday lunches. She brought baked goods for the staff. Cried about how hard it was as a survivor. How the courts failed her by giving him any visitation at all. Supervised, one Saturday a month. She made sure we knew she was the good guy. One assignment that year was a personal narrative. Write about a time you learned something that changed how you see the world. Pretty standard. Max turned his in late. Handwritten, not typed. He looked nervous when he gave it to me. I read it at home and had to put it down twice. He wrote about finding an old cardboard box in his mom's closet while looking for winter boots. In it, a wedding album, letters, and a thick folder labeled evidence. He thought it was for the custody case. He opened it. Inside was a list. Bullet points. Draft stories. Version A, he threw the plate at the wall. Version B, he threw the plate near me. Version C, he threatened to throw the plate but didn't. Little notes. Use the crying voice here. Mention my childhood. Say, I was terrified for my baby. And then a second folder. Emails from dad to the court asking for more visitation, and replies from her lawyer recommending strategies to demonstrate continued fear, even if incidents were stale. Attached were printouts of texts from her to friends, bragging that if she played the DV angle right, he'd be weekend visitation for life. Max wrote about realizing the stories she told about his dad might not be true. How on supervised visits, his dad never raised his voice, never badmouthed mom, just asked about school and brought him books. How he'd been scared of him for years because she said he was a monster. The kicker. He finished the essay with, maybe the monster is the one who needed to tell the story first. Mandated reporter brain went into overdrive. Not because dad was suddenly cleared, this was still a kid's perspective, but because this was emotional abuse territory. I took it to the school counselor, who took it to the principal. We contacted the guardian ad litem on his case. A few months later, Max's dad started showing up. Not for events, he wasn't allowed yet, but for meetings. Calm, nicely dressed, clutching a worn folder of his own. The court had ordered a reevaluation of custody and mom's claims. By the end of the year, emergency contact forms came back different. 2 names. No red ink. At our end-of-year showcase, students could choose a piece of writing to display anonymously. Max picked his essay, but crossed out one line before hanging it up. The last sentence now read, maybe the monster is the one who needs everyone to believe their story, no matter who it hurts. His mom walked past the bulletin board, read it, and went absolutely silent. For the first time all year, she left without saying a word to any of us. Story 9, I supervise a small city's 911 dispatch. We hear the worst nights of people's lives through a headset. You also start to recognize voices. 3 summers ago, we started getting calls from the same woman. I'll call her Lauren. First one. My ex is outside, he's threatening me, he's going to break in. Units roll. By the time officers get there, ex is sitting in his car down the street, calm, recording on his phone. They separate them, no charges. Then it happens again. And again. Each time, Lauren is sobbing, whispering, he said he'll kill me. He's stalking me. He's banging on the windows. Each time, the responding officers' reports say, he was on the sidewalk, or in his car, or, once, still at his own apartment when she claimed he was at her door. TRO on file, messy breakup, we treat it seriously. We're not there. We can't see. We go by the call. After the 4th false alarm in 2 months, one of the officers asks us to start tagging the CAD history more carefully. A pattern's forming. In between calls, the ex walks into the station lobby and asks to speak to someone. He brings traffic cam stills, work timesheets, text from her where she admits, I'll just call 911 again and tell them you're scaring me. We forward it up the chain, but without catching her in a clear lie, it's mudslinging. The TRO means he can't even drive down her street now without risking arrest. He moves across town, changes his route to work. She still calls twice more, claiming he drove circles around her block. The shift for me came on a night I was covering a console. Lauren calls, frantic. He's in my backyard right now. I can see him. Oh my God, hurry. I patch through, tone out units, start the usual verification questions. Except this time she slips. Says he climbed over the back fence in the alley. There is no alley behind her house. It's a ravine. I know this because I live 2 streets over. I quietly message the responding sergeant. Check backyard cameras, neighbors too. They get there. No X, no footprints in the mud. But you know what does see the backyard? Neighbor's brand new security system, pointed straight at her fence. They pull the footage. Across 3 separate nights when she'd called us sobbing about him being outside, the cameras show nothing. No one. On the most recent, it shows her standing in her kitchen with the phone to her ear, staring out into an empty yard. Report gets filed. She gets charged for misuse of 911 and false reporting, but that's not the real karma. The big one hits in family court. All those incident numbers she rattled off to prove how dangerous he was, suddenly they have attached officer supplements noting no suspect on scene, conflicting statements, video contradicts caller. The judge, who'd previously limited Dad to supervised visits because of the pattern of police involvement, reads each addendum slowly. Then he looks at Lauren and says, Ms. Summerfuss, you weaponized this system. You gambled that no one would ever check. Dad walks out of that hearing with joint custody and the ability to attend his kids' soccer games again. Lauren walks out with a criminal case and a court order that any future police reports involving him will require immediate video review. Her last call to us, months later, was for a noise complaint about a neighbor's party. For the first time, she sounded small, not terrified, just small. Story 10. My friend group got split down the middle by one breakup. Danny and Luke were together 8 years. She was the social glue, the one who planned trips, organized birthdays. When they split, she told us he'd been cheating for years, that he'd isolated her, that he'd threatened to hurt himself if she left. She cried in every group chat until people started quietly removing him from invites. Luke didn't fight back, just moved out, unfollowed everyone, started over. When I asked for his side, he just said, "It's complicated. Believe who you want." Over time, Danny's version became canon. He was a manipulative, fragile man-baby who weaponized his sadness. She was the brave escapee. She got engaged 2 years later to a guy she met at work. We all adjusted. Then Luke died. Car accident. Middle of the night, black ice, no alcohol involved. His sister posted the news and my stomach just dropped. I hadn't spoken to him in over a year because I'd been too cowardly to pick a side. Danny immediately went into performance mode. Long Facebook post about grieving the boy who broke me, about forgiving his demons, about how she hoped he found the peace he couldn't find in life. People ate it up. She was tagged as his great love in comments by folks who didn't know the backstory. His family asked a few of us to help with the obituary since we knew him from college. Danny volunteered, of course. She sent around a draft. Luke is survived by his loving parents, sister, and his former partner Danielle, who supported him through his long struggle with mental health and abuse patterns. In his obituary, his sister forwarded it to me with, "Is this true?" I told her honestly, I didn't know what was true anymore. I'd only ever heard one side. She replied, "I do." At the funeral, Danny showed up in black lace, playing the bereaved almost widow, sat with the family, took tissues from his mom, posted selfies from the bathroom about shaky hands can't stop crying. I wanted to be sick. After the service, the pastor announced that the family had prepared something to honor Luke's memory. I expected a slideshow. Instead, his sister walked up holding folded papers. She read the actual obituary that ran in the local paper. It was simple. Talked about his love of bad puns, his job as a youth counselor, his volunteer work, and then one line that didn't sound like obituary language at all. Contrary to false stories that have circulated, Luke was not an abuser. He was a man who kept other people's secrets, including lies that cost him friendships. Murmurs. People shifted in their pews. His sister looked up, straight at where our friend group was sitting and said, "My brother never told us what happened in his relationship because he wanted to protect someone's reputation. After he died, we found his journals and his messages to his therapist. We know now he was manipulated, not the other way around." She didn't name Danny. She didn't have to. Later, in a smaller room at the reception, I saw the journal pages she meant. Luke describing how Danny threatened to accuse him of abuse if he left, how she pre-wrote stories for her friends, how he decided staying the villain in everyone's eyes was easier than detonating the friend group. "Maybe when I die," he'd written once, "someone will finally believe I wasn't the one pulling the strings." Danny left the reception early. The next day, she quietly deleted every abusive ex post from her socials. But caches never forget. A couple of our friends screenshotted before they vanished. We didn't confront her. We just stopped showing up. The cruelest karma? Luke never got to see everyone realize he'd been the honest one all along. But his name got edited back to what it should have been. In print, forever. And hers, well, hers is now the one people lower their voice to say. Story 11, I'm a vet tech at a 24/7 animal hospital. We see a lot of breakup drama disguised as pet emergencies, but this one still lives rent-free in my brain. We had this golden retriever, Milo, who became a regular. Lovely dog, nervous eyes, clearly adored by someone. The person who always brought him in was Heather, mid-30s, dramatic entrance every time. She'd slam through the doors sobbing, "My ex is trying to kill our dog. He left chocolate out. He didn't refill the meds. He's abusing him through neglect." We'd rush Milo to the back, and he'd be fine. Vitals normal. Tests clean. Half the time there wasn't even chocolate in his system, just a slightly soft stool or some mild gas. She'd stand at the desk yelling on the phone at Adam, the ex. Stuff like, "Maybe if I send you the bill, you'll learn to care." Then she'd ask us to put her as the sole owner on Milo's chart for legal reasons. But the microchip still traced back to Adam. After the third emergency in 2 months, a guy shows up instead of Heather. Tired, jeans, work boots, introduces himself as Adam. He brings coffee for the whole staff and quietly asks if Milo's okay. He explains, Heather got the dog while they were together, but he paid for everything and Milo bonded to him. After they split, she used Milo as leverage. If Adam didn't send money or agree to last-minute favors, suddenly Milo was sick, and she'd rush him to us, then send him the bill with, "Look what you did." He'd been paying every time out of guilt. He asked if the emergencies were real. We couldn't give him much, privacy laws and all, but we could print the visit summaries with owner of record. All of them said the same thing. Mild symptoms, no evidence of poisoning or trauma, recommended monitoring at home. He took the stack straight to his lawyer. A few weeks later, they both show up with separate lawyers for a court-ordered exam. We had to do a neutral assessment of Milo's health and general condition. Heather came in full waterworks. He starves him. He leaves him alone all day. Milo trotted into the room, saw Adam, and lost his tiny dog mind. Full body wiggle, whining, trying to claw through the exam table to get to him. When Heather tried to call him over, he literally hid behind Adam's legs. Judge wasn't in the room, but the court-appointed evaluator was. You could see the notes practically writing themselves. Here's the karma. Turned out Heather had also been giving Milo extra doses of his anxiety meds before each emergency visit so he'd seem off. We found empty blister packs in her bag when she asked us to dispose of trash, and they didn't match the refill dates. That made it into the report. Adam ended up with full custody of Milo and decision-making over vet care. Heather was barred from unsupervised visits with the dog and flagged in our system as someone we do not let make unilateral decisions about euthanasia, shocker ownership. Months later, Adam brought Milo in for a routine checkup. No drama, no crying. Just a dog who finally looked relaxed. As they left, he scratched Milo's ears and said, loud enough for me to hear, "Hey buddy, nobody gets to use you as a weapon anymore." Milo wagged like he understood every word. Story 12, I'm the admin at a mid-sized suburban church. You know, the person who actually answers the phone, sends the emails, and sees way more than the pastor does. Grace was our worship leader. Perfect voice, perfect hair, perfect Instagram full of verses over latte art. She also had a whole testimony about surviving a toxic marriage. Her ex-husband, Joel, had supposedly abandoned her and their son, cheated constantly, and twisted scripture to control her. The congregation rallied around her. People dropped off meals, helped with childcare, slipped cash into her mailbox. Meanwhile, Joel was basically Voldemort, not to be named. She told everyone he was unsafe and unrepentant, so he wasn't welcome on the property. One day, I'm reconciling receipts for the Benevolence Fund, money the church gives to struggling families. There are a bunch of hotel charges under the generic category Emergency Housing for Abuse Survivor, all approved by the pastor. Reason listed. Grace and child, temporary stay after being forced out of home. The dates catch my eye. They overlap perfectly with the weekend Joel supposedly locked her out and threw her stuff on the lawn. I remember because that was the Sunday she stood on stage and cried through an entire worship set. But we also have something else. Entry camera logs. Security was installed after a break-in. I have video of who used their key card and when. On the weekend, she claimed she and her child were homeless. Her card was used to come and go from the parsonage guest room she was temporarily staying in, and from the church building. And then there's footage from the hotel lobby camera. The hotel emailed us for a separate incident. Grace is there, yes. But so is a man who is definitely not Joel. Same guy in multiple clips. Hands all over each other, kissing in the elevator. No kid in sight. I sit on it, because honestly, not my circus. Until Joel calls. He asks, voice shaking, if we have any documentation on the benevolence payments because he's in family court and she's claiming she and their son were literally on the streets, sleeping in the car, while he hoarded money. He thinks she was with someone else that weekend. Our lawyer says we can comply with a subpoena. A week later, we get one. The judge sees hotel bills paid with church charity money, security footage, timestamps, the fact that their kid was actually with Joel that weekend per his school check-in records. At the next elders meeting, our usually gentle pastor looks like he swallowed nails. Grace gets called in. No singing, no mic. Just a table full of men and women she's been lying to for 2 years. She tries the waterworks. My truth. My trauma. God knows my heart. Then one of the elders quietly slides printed screenshots across the table. Her texts to the mystery guy, pulled in discovery. Can't wait to finally be free of Joel. Church will pay for the hotel. God provides LOL. Her contract is terminated for financial misconduct and lying to the congregation. Word spreads. The women's Bible study she led crumbles overnight. The punch in the gut came 2 Sundays later. Joel walked in, cautiously, holding his son's hand. The kid saw the worship team setting up and whispered, "Is Mom singing today?" The volunteer at the door said, "No, buddy, not today." And this little boy, who'd been told his dad was a monster who abandoned them, looked up at Joel and said, like it was a brand new thought, "Then can we sit with you now?" They sat in the front row. I watched Joel sing the songs his ex used to lead, tears streaming down his face, his son leaning against him like they'd both finally gotten some piece of their church back. Story 13, I run a big MMO guild. Mix of college kids, tired parents, tech bros, standard nerd soup. 2 of our longtime raiders, Rhea and Mark, started dating after years of flirting on voice chat. It was cute, until it wasn't. When they broke up, Rhea messaged me privately saying Mark had gotten creepy and controlling. She claimed he was DMing her nonstop, threatening self-harm, monitoring when she logged in. Heavy stuff. She didn't send proof, said it was too triggering to share, but wanted him out of the guild because seeing his name pop up was traumatic. We have a zero harassment policy. I asked Mark for his side. He sent one message. We broke up. I said I needed space. I blocked her. That's it. I'm not going to show you our private relationship. Then he voluntarily stepped down from raiding and left the Discord. Said he didn't want to cause drama. Rhea stayed, and she talked. To everyone. Mark transformed from that guy who knows all the raid mechanics to that manipulative stalker who drove Rhea into therapy. People cut him off in other servers. A few DMs I saw were literally, "If you care about women, you'll block Mark." Fast forward a year. Game Studio announces a Convention Plus tournament. Some of us decide to go. Rhea goes. I go. A handful of others. Day 1, we're in line for badges when I hear someone behind me say my gamertag. It's Mark. In the flesh. Taller than I imagined. Awkward smile. Girlfriend in tow. I brace for the worst, but he just says, "Hey, no hard feelings. Hope you're well." We end up grouping for a casual in-person dungeon run the devs set up. To my surprise, Mark and Rhea both join. It's civil, awkward, but nobody explodes. That night, some of us grab drinks at the hotel bar. I'm chatting with Mark's girlfriend, Lily, about non-game stuff when she asks, "So were you around when Rhea was sending all those screenshots?" I blink. What screenshots? Turns out, in another Discord community, Rhea had run the same story. Abusive, controlling ex. But this time she had provided proof. Walls of chat logs, carefully clipped. Only Lily's friend is a mod there and saw the originals before Rhea deleted them. They weren't Mark threatening her. They were her threatening to accuse him of harassment if he ever told people she'd cheated with multiple guildmates. The suicide threat message that made everyone rush to her defense was actually Mark saying, "I'm not responsible for your self-harm if you use it to manipulate me. I'm blocking you now." The mod quietly banned Rhea from that server and gave Lily copies of the full logs in case Mark ever needed them. He hadn't wanted to use them. He just wanted out. Next day, there's a Q&A panel with the devs about community health and harassment. They open the floor for stories. Rhea practically sprints to the mic, starts in on a vague, "My guild chose my abuser over me" monologue. Behind me, Lily stands up and walks over to a staff volunteer, hands them her phone. The volunteer talks into the dev's ear. They ask Rhea to step away from the mic for a quick clarification. 5 minutes later, security politely asks Rhea to leave the convention for violating community policies in other partner servers. No public call-out, no dramatic expose, just a firm, quiet boot. Word got around our guild Discord in about 0.2 seconds. People started asking questions Rhea couldn't answer because she was banned from that too. Mark never sent the logs. He never gloated. He just rejoined the guild a month later, rated calmly, and muted himself whenever gossip came up. The karma wasn't loud. It was watching the person who weaponized community safety get quietly labeled unsafe by the very communities she tried to control. Story 14. I used to work as a casting assistant for one of those trashy dating reality shows. NDA means I can't name it. But think, tropical island, too much alcohol, crying in confessionals. During pre-interviews, we met Tara, blonde, telegenic, full of sound bites. Her angle, she'd survived a narcissistic, gaslighting ex and was ready to learn to trust again. The producers circled her name in red. Trauma plays well. Our job was to vet people so we didn't accidentally put actual predators on TV. We do background checks, talk to exes when possible. For Tara, her main ex, Noah, was surprisingly willing to talk, as long as it wasn't on camera. He told a very different story. According to him, she was the one who cheated, lied about being pregnant twice to keep him from leaving, and then told everyone he abused her when he finally walked. He said she'd already destroyed his reputation locally. He didn't want to be on TV too. We'd heard that kind of he said, she said before. Usually the truth is messy in the middle. But something in his voice made our supervising producer dig deeper. We asked Tara to sign releases for routine fact-checking, including access to some social media archives. She agreed without reading. They almost never do. We pulled deleted posts, old Finsta stories, comments she'd forgotten about. There she was, 3 years ago, joking with friends. If he leaves, I'll just go full abuse survivor on him. No one will question me. Another post. Men don't realize gaslighting is just me winning the argument. Then we got her hometown police reports. She'd filed 3 complaints against Noah for harassment, each one closed as unfounded, with notes from officers about her changing details. In one, a neighbor's door cam actually proved Noah wasn't even on the street when she said he was banging on the door. We brought her back for a second interview. Cameras rolling. The lead producer asked gentle questions, then dropped a printed screenshot of her old post on the table. The abuse survivor joke. Tara stared at it, then at the camera, then laughed weakly. Oh my God, I was just being edgy. It's not that deep. He slid over a copy of the police supplement mentioning the door cam. She realized, mid-eye roll, that we weren't buying the polished version, that this wasn't going to be her story only. Here's the karma. We cast her anyway, but not as the wounded heroine looking for love. We cast her as what she was, the messy, manipulative one. The edit showed her contradicting herself, bragging about playing the victim card to other contestants. They aired a phone call, with consent, from Noah, where he calmly said, "I hope you stop telling people I hurt you. That's all I want." Then cut to her laughing in the confessional about how men are so dramatic. When the season aired, the internet dragged her. Not in a dogpile way, in a "this is what emotional abuse actually looks like" way. Actual survivors called out her fake narratives. Brands she'd been courting for advocacy partnerships quietly backed away. She tried to spin it, of course. Claimed bad edit. Claimed the show silenced her truth. But you can't edit in words you never said, or police reports you actually filed. I left reality TV not long after. Got tired of the chaos. But I still think about Tara sometimes. She wanted a national platform to cement her version of the breakup forever. Instead, millions of people watched her do to strangers exactly what she'd claimed her ex did to her. Story 15. I'm a professor in a niche STEM field. About 10 years ago, I supervised a brilliant grad student, Leah, and her boyfriend, John, also in the program. They co-authored a couple of early papers, then split both romantically and academically. Breakup was ugly. Leah came to my office in tears saying John was trying to steal her work, that he'd threatened to publish her thesis idea without her. She asked me to keep an eye on him. I did what I could, made sure credit on joint projects was clear, encouraged them to separate projects. John switched advisors, changed labs, and quietly ground away on his dissertation. Leah stayed with me, but every time his name came up, she'd launch into a monologue about his academic abuse, taking advantage of her emotional labor, minimizing her contributions, classic smart guy villain arc. I didn't see evidence of outright theft from either side. Just 2 hurt 20-somethings rewriting history. A few years later, Leah graduates, does a postdoc overseas, then lands a coveted industry research job. She gives a TEDx-style talk about surviving a toxic collaborator that makes the rounds on academic Twitter. People DM me like, wow, that must have been rough to supervise. Meanwhile, John stays in academia. Slow, steady, publishes unflashy but solid work. One day, he sends me a link, an article in a major journal authored by Leah about a new algorithm. He's not bitter. He's asking, does this look weird to you? It does. Because I recognize half the figures. They're from John's dissertation, not inspired by, not same field. We're talking identical data distributions, same axis ranges, same typos in the labels. She's changed variable names and reworked the introduction into her own voice, but the guts are his. I go hunting. John's dissertation is on our open access repository, time-stamped years earlier. Leah's paper has no citation to it. None. I contact the journal quietly. As per policy, lay out the evidence. They start a formal investigation. Meanwhile, Leah is on LinkedIn posting about breaking new ground in ethical AI. Months later, the journal publishes a retraction notice. It's brutal. States that significant portions of the work were taken from an earlier dissertation by another researcher without proper attribution, that the corresponding author, Leah, accepts responsibility. Academic Twitter, which once boosted her toxic collaborator talk, explodes again. This time, not in support. Then John forwards me something I didn't expect. An email from Leah. It's a wall of text. Starts with, I can't believe you would stab me in the back like this after everything he did to me. Then pivots into, we both worked on those early ideas. I was just reclaiming what he stole. She CC'd HR at her company, our dean, and, bizarrely, her therapist. She'd spent years telling anyone who'd listen that he was the thief. When the receipts finally came due, she genuinely couldn't see the difference between idea we once discussed and data he generated, analyzed, wrote up, and publicly archived with his name on it. Company HR, seeing the retraction, quietly let her contract lapse. No renewal. Other journals started re-reviewing her submissions. Rumors of integrity concerns followed. John? He got a weird sort of vindication he never asked for. The retraction explicitly named his thesis. People discovered his work through that scandal who might never have read it otherwise. The gut punch for me was this. I dug up Leah's old draft of that toxic collaborator talk. Buried in the middle was a line I'd forgotten. The worst thing about being manipulated is that you start to believe you're the one doing harm, just for telling your side. She'd weaponized that idea so hard she couldn't recognize when she actually was doing harm. The universe didn't strike her down with lightning. It just printed, in black and white, the thing she'd spent a decade running from. This time, the person twisting the truth and stealing the work was her.